What is up, Yankee fans? I'm Ryan from Fireside Yankees, and in today's episode, we have a little bit of a rumor mill update as, according to Ken Rosenthal of The Athletic, the New York Yankees and the Chicago Cubs are showing interest in left-handed relief pitcher Brooks Raley. Now, for those who aren't aware, Brooks Raley is entering his age 37 season. He underwent Tommy John surgery last May and will not return until sometime in July. But when he is healthy, he is excellent. Now, this past season was obviously a wash because he underwent Tommy John surgery in May. In his 8 appearances, he didn't allow a single run. He had a 36% strikeout rate. But the year prior with the New York Mets, he put up a 2.80 ERA in 66 appearances with a 25.8% strikeout rate, a 10.6% walk rate, and a 0.66 home runs per 9. He is someone who has figured out how to prevent home runs after coming over from the Korean baseball organization. He, bounced around from the major leagues to the minor leagues to Korea, came back with the Houston Astros, struggled a lot with his run prevention as a result of those high home run rates, and was still able to maintain the strikeout rates and, for the most part, limit walks, although that has been something he struggled with the Mets. Citi Field's a little bit of a weird ballpark because of the wind conditions, so I wonder if that played a role in it, but Brooks Raley is someone who would clearly upgrade the Yankees bullpen, when he's healthy. He's a left-handed reliever. He's someone that the Yankees could really use right now, given their lack of left-handed bullpen depth. I know a lot of people are going to say that Tim Hill is someone that they should bring back. They should stop being, interested or flirting around with other left-handed relievers. We don't know what Tim Hill's asking for. We don't know when he's going to sign. We don't know what the Yankees, what they've done, how they've explored the reliever market. They seem to have been casting a pretty wide net in terms of relievers. They've looked at Andrew Chafin. They've looked at the aforementioned Brooks Raley. We obviously know they have interest in Tim Hill, but the way I look at this right now is that the Yankees are looking for any options they can get on the market from the left-handed side who they believe can boost their bullpen. What I do wonder is whether the Yankees would be willing to import 2 relief pitchers, both of them left-handed. Maybe if they brought in Brooks Raley and Tim Hill, it would be a situation in which, number one, you're getting a reliever in Brooks Raley who I think is better than Tim Hill when healthy because of his ability to miss bats and prevent damage contact. Something that Hill does really well is prevent damage contact, but clearly we know he can't get swings and misses at the rate of other elite relief pitchers. Hill is someone who's going to be ready for opening day, barring anything happening in spring training, or at least is on schedule to be ready for opening day and is at least 100% going to be ready for spring training. Both these guys are older pitchers. Tim Hill's entering his age 34 season, his age 35 season. Brooks Raley entering his age 36 season. He's going to turn 37 in June, so I don't know if you want to say entering his age 36 or age 37 season. I guess he won't pitch until he's 37 because he won't come back to July, so we'll stick it as age 37 season. But he doesn't really rely on velocity. He relies a lot more on movement. He's got a disgusting sweeping slider, a really good cutter, a nice changeup, and a sinker that has had issues before. I wonder if that's something that Matt Blake and Sam Breen work on Raley with. His ability to generate lateral movement's really impressive. His sweeper generates excess of 17 inches of glove side movement. The cutter has a really good ability to generate glove side movement as well. He releases from a lower slot release, which plays up the rest of his arsenal. He's someone who I hold in a pretty high regard. With his time with the Mets, he had a 2.48 ERA and struck out north of 27% of batters faced. And if you look at his time over the last 3 years, because he spent a year with the Tampa Bay Rays, he's been firmly one of the best left-handed relievers in baseball. And you can never really have too much pitching. I strongly believe that. You can never have enough pitching depth. The Yankees could desperately use more in their bullpen, not because their bullpen sucks, but because they don't really have a lot of left-handed options. Maybe Raley is in tandem with another addition, part of that solution. They still have interest in Andrew Chafin, who has yet to sign. Chafin has a really good slider, also misses a ton of bats, hasn't had the same run prevention success as Raley or Hill has had over the last calendar year, but again, to me, it doesn't really matter who they bring in as long as they bring in someone from the left-handed side who's a living body and, has had success at the major league level. I trust the Yankees to scout well on the bullpen side of the ball. I trust the Yankees to develop well. I trust the Yankees to be able to import talent onto that side of the ball, whether it's externally or internally, to fix their needs. The problem with trying to go with an internal solution right now with the bullpen is that they don't really have a lefty on the 40-man roster. They don't have anyone who's up and coming, who's going to be on this team in 2025 for sure, who's from from the left-handed side. Their best bullpen prospects are from the right-handed side. Their best pitching prospects are from the right-handed side. The only lefty who I could really see factoring in the 2025 Yankees is someone like Brock Selvage, who's a starting pitcher. I doubt the Yankees would call him up to be a reliever immediately or in a high-leverage role. I imagine the Yankees would prefer to go external for that. Not that the Yankees don't trust their internal players to step up and do a job, but they seem to be more willing to trust those players to step up and do a job in their natural roles, whether it's a starter coming up as a starter or starter coming up as a reliever, but not really in an impact role, just kind of like the Yankees need somebody to pitch for them for a couple of weeks and then get set down. With that being said, though, another nugget from this article with Ken Rosenthal was in regards to Marcus Stroman. Now, Marcus Stroman obviously had a down year with the New York Yankees this past season. The Yankees are looking to move off his $18.3 million salary for the 2025 season, but there are some complications here. First and foremost, he's owed $18.3 million. He's not particularly good. So Yankees are obviously having trouble finding a team who's going to eat enough of that salary to make this a worthwhile transaction for the Yankees. And then the second thing that Ken Rosenthal notes regarding trying to move Marcus Stroman and some of the complications there have to do with the fact that Marcus Stroman has a player option or a vesting option for the 2026 season. If he exceeds a 130 innings pitched threshold, he will be back for 2026. He's owed that money. I guess he could decline it, but it's very doubtful that he pitches well enough to, decline $18 million guaranteed, in the final years or the waning years of his career. Perhaps that does happen. That would be, certainly a positive outcome for whatever team has him, because maybe the player declines it and then he hits the market again, and then you've got one good year Marcus Stroman, and you don't have to owe him any money after that. Not to say that Marcus Stroman, that you don't want a good pitcher on your team, but that, pitching is volatile, age regression is volatile. And the other note here is that, if you're trading for him, you're trading for him with the intent of trying to get more than 130 innings. If you're paying $10 million for 129 innings, it's kind of a hard sell. And that's something that is evident. Like, the Yankees have had trouble trying to trade him away. Now, one thing that Rosenthal notes the Yankees could do is perhaps address some of their infield issues by acquiring someone on a big contract in return for Marcus Stroman. There are a lot of players out there who teams are going to try to shop to shed some payroll. There aren't a lot of fits in the infield market. Maybe the Yankees can address, take on a big contract at a different position and then get a player attached onto that player that can help them in their infield. That would behoove the Yankees. I've talked about Taylor Rogers. I don't necessarily think the Giants are an attractive trade target for the Yankees for infield targets, and I don't think Marcus Stroman appeals to them after signing Justin Verlander, who is kind of another washed veteran who, they're hoping can give them more value than he gave his previous team in 2024. That's obviously, there are not a lot of avenues for that. I actually recently cooked up a mock trade that I put in an article. I'll link it in the description, where the Yankees would send Marcus Stroman and Mark Leiter Jr. to the Minnesota Twins, and in return, they would get Willie Castro and Christian Vasquez. Mark Leiter Jr. is probably going to make $2.05 million. That's where the Yankees filed, and I think they'll win the case. If they don't, it's $2.5 million, but again, I think the Yankees will win the case. Teams usually win the arbitration cases. That's not really like a referendum on his talent level. It's just kind of how these things go. I think they also could try to settle before going to arbitration. Players don't like going to arbitration. It usually gets pretty ugly. And the Yankees haven't gone to arbitration with a player since Dellin Betances nearly a decade ago. So I do wonder if there's a little bit of incentive on both sides here to maybe get a deal done on the side. I would also like to add that Stroman, he's making $18.5 million for 2025. You would have that plus about $2.05 million. That's $20.55 million if Mark Leiter Jr. loses the case. If he wins the case, it's $21 million. And in this scenario, the Yankees would be getting Vasquez and Willie Castro. They account for $16.4 million. Willie Castro's arbitration case is settled. Christian Vasquez is on a major league guaranteed deal. His contract cannot be negotiated for 2025, so it's $10 million set and firm, set in stone. The Yankees would be either getting a 4.15 or about a $4.5 million decrease in payroll, and that's pretty significant because, number one, if it's $4.5 million, Fangraphs will if they subtract the money that they're projected to give Mark Leiter Jr. from Fangraphs, which has the projected number on there, plus the difference between Stroman and then Castro and Vasquez, things would dip below the fourth threshold of the luxury tax. It's a small difference in salary, but it's a massive, massive, massive thing for the Yankees. We'll see if maybe they could do something like maybe they don't add a left-hander pitcher in this sense. Maybe they do and they just go back over the 4 threshold, but they're narrowly over it. They could duck under it if they need to at the deadline, if something goes wrong, if they have to sell, if they're in a bad spot. The Yankees can kind of decide their fate for the 2025 season depending on kind of how things go. So, I personally think that this is the kind of mock trade where maybe get a prospect involved, maybe something has to happen for the Yankees to get this deal done. But the Yankees would get an infielder in this scenario. They would get a catcher as well. Someone to back up Austin Wells, not platoon with, just back him up. Just be like there when Wells is banged up or Tyler just needs a day. That's just a mock trade I threw out there. I believe it was also mentioned in this article by Ken Rosenthal that Anthony Santander and Jack Flaherty are looking for shorter-term deals with higher annual average salary. I just want to point out now, I don't think either player will be a New York Yankee. Santander has no defensive fit because he can't play the infield. And then Jack Flaherty, the Yankees are not really unless they get, even if they get Roki Sasaki, which I doubt, I doubt the Yankees would be in a scenario where they go from a 6-man to a 5-man rotation with Sasaki. I don't see that. And then with Flaherty, you'd be increasing your payroll by a much larger margin to go out and get a infielder in a trade. Ken Rosenthal notes that the Yankees are looking more towards lower-priced infielders. Jorge Polanco's a name I've heard repeatedly. I think that's what the avenue is going to end up being. We've heard him on Jack Curry from Jack Curry on Hot Stove. So to kind of round this all up, left-handed relief pitching, that's where the Yankees are at right now. They need that. Lower-priced infielder, someone like a Jorge Polanco. Those two kinds of things seem to be bankable. And then maybe, just maybe, they find a way to trade Marcus Stroman. They may have to get creative there. There doesn't seem to be a clear-cut avenue to do it. Or they can hang on to him and just have more starting pitching depth. With that being said, we appreciate you guys sticking through to the end of the video. There was a decent bit to cover in this article. We'll link the Ken Rosenthal article in the description below as well. I'll have the mock trade there with Stroman and everything so you guys can check it out. We appreciate you guys checking out Fireside Yankees on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, and of course this YouTube page. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out, everybody.
Perfect.